Excellent.
Peaceful greetings, fam. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time, your energy for watching this episode. You Deserve the Win, episode 8, featuring Sam and me, and I'm grateful for tuning in. And Sam, he's been killing it in the real estate game, especially being a really good leader in the sub-2 community. He's definitely a man that's leading by example and who's also sincere and genuine at the same time. It's not common to see that, but it is refreshing to see that when you come across it in person. So I have him here today, and if you could just briefly introduce yourself to the people who are learning about you today.
No, it's so good to be here. Thank you. Thank you both for making the time and having me out and being persistent with it too. My name is Sam Singh. I am coming up on 2 years in the real estate entrepreneurship space. We do a ton of things. You know, maybe about a year ago, I used to say I was only a wholesaler, but now we wholesale. We do renovations. We buy and holding a ton, and we've got a pretty sizable operation doing a lot of things. That's it in short.
Awesome. And what brought you to Houston?
So one of my good friends who's actually right across the hall over there is Jeff Smith, one of the regional accountability group leaders for the Houston kind of investment community here. And so Jeff Smith is crushing it. He does a ton of events, and he's been on my butt to fly out. I'm from California, to fly out from Cali, and just to do a series of events and hopefully give a ton of value to a lot of people. And that's exactly it. So we're just here. We're here to connect and meet people, do some speaking stuff. I mean, hell, we're at an event right now where some brand new people who've never spoken to a seller are making their first ever seller calls right across the hall. So it's really cool to be able to be a part of that.
That's awesome. Appreciate you coming out. Thank you. And because I know you're taking your time out of your business that's, fully successful, but it needs you to be fully successful in it, right? And you're currently looking for someone to substitute and amplify what you're doing while you're over here. How is that process unfolding?
Yeah, it's a unique thing. So in a business, we've always have this game of upgrading leverage, right? When you first get into an industry, let's just say wholesale, you have to learn how to call sellers. And eventually you're going to get really decent at cold calling sellers. And then you will eventually replace yourself by hiring a cold caller. Then you're going to do the same thing with a lead manager, and the same thing with a closer, and the same thing with a TC person or a dispositions expert or an underwriter, all these things. And then at a point, you will get to where you have a sales team manager, or sales team lead, or a sales director, basically running your entire sales side. And then what does that put you in? It puts you in a position where you're effectively the CEO or COO, one or the other, depending on the terminology that you like, or whatever you've defined for yourself. We're in the position now where, in order for me to upgrade leverage, we have to go and do something really unique and something that is new to me, which is effectively replacing myself as the CEO/COO and making an effective executive C-suite hire. And that's a unique problem to solve.
Yeah, it's definitely unique. It's something that you have to be very conscious of, because you're, like you said last night, you're handing your baby to someone else. And in order to do that, how long of a training does that person have to go through to substitute what you're doing?
And that's the actual number one issue right there, right? It took me almost 2 years to get to where I'm at in terms of my knowledge base to be able to run the company to where it's at. I have to go and potentially find someone who, may not be an expert in this industry, and then give them a very compressed timeline to learn how to do everything that I know how to do. Not everything that I know how to do, but enough to run the ship, and so the ship doesn't sink, and it keeps prospering, and it keeps making money, and ideally keeps making more money. And so that is a very unique difficulty, but I think, it can be done in a matter of 2 to 3 months with the right onboarding process, with the right hand-holding, with the right SOPs and infrastructure. The good thing with me is that we've paid for such elevated mentorship and masterminding that we can basically call on a lot of mentors of mine to help leverage their expertise in pouring into this person. So truth be told, it's not going to be me who's pouring into this person completely. It's 30% of it is me, 30% of it is one of my mentors, 30% of it's another one of my mentors. And we'll have, on top of all of that, we'll have all of these systems, these processes that we're building out currently to give to them to set them up to succeed.
Wow, that's awesome. I trust everything's going to work out in your favor and your business, and I'm sending a lot of positive energy for it to unfold successfully.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I mean, it's a scary thing, but it's going to be so worth it. And here's the thing, it may not work out with the first person. It may be just like, a lot of people, they'll hire a cold caller, and then it doesn't work out. 2-3 months, they have to leave, or they get fired, or they quit, or something happens. Same thing might happen here, and that's completely okay. So if that happens, we're just going to keep trying and trying and trying, because here's the cool thing. This is going to be an absolute first for me, and then I absolutely have to get it done, because if I get it done this time, I can do it again in any other business. And that's the key to growth, and that's the key to exponential scale.
And we were talking about Eric Klein earlier, and that's what he did. In his first business, he took it to 34 million in revenue. And then it got taken away from him. And I'm able to say that because he comfortably says that, right? And now he's building a whole new business in a different industry, different ball game, and he's taking it to extreme levels. His first year, he did like 1.2 million in net profit, right? So he did more in revenue, but like that's incredible, if my memory is correct.
Yeah, so Eric Klein, he's a phenomenal friend. Actually, I think I spoke to him maybe about 2 weeks ago, just reaching out to wish him, give him well wishes. He's a phenomenal dude. He's been on my podcast, The Origin Story. Amazing human being. One of the best stories in the entire industry. If you tell me, Sam, what is the best comeback story you've ever heard in real estate, it would be hard for me not to say Eric Klein. But you're absolutely right. He's done it in another industry, and then you don't really hear about many people coming into wholesale and then doing $1-2 million their first year. The reason why he did it is because he's done it before somewhere else, and that's really the name of the game, right? It's if you know how to build and scale an operation in one industry, a lot of the principles will carry over. And if you understand that, you can do so much damage to entrepreneurship.
Oh yeah, I agree. And that episode you did with Eric Klein was phenomenal. You asked great questions.
Thank you.
And it's definitely good for you to watch. If you haven't tuned into Sam's YouTube channel, I encourage you to subscribe and hit the notification bell. It doesn't count if you don't hit the notification bell. You do need to hit that bell. What's the YouTube channel?
So you're just going to go look me up on YouTube. You can just type in Sam Singh. I'll be the first one that comes up. There's a little check mark next to my name. That's how you know it's me.
Awesome. All right. And now that you're stepping into a new phase in your business, let's talk about how you first started 2 years ago.
Right.
When you first started, was it a one-man show, or did you always have someone else that y'all were working with each other and helped it grow? Then y'all had to depart ways, or what's the full story?
So in the beginning, I went in and I kind of did what every guru told me to do, which was buy 2 full-time BAs and then buy a crap ton of data and then bleed a ton of money away doing that. And the reality is, I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't even ready to manage cold callers. I'd never had an employee in my life. I'd led teams before in other industries, but I'd never actually had an employee. And then what happened was I didn't know enough about the industry to set them up to succeed. So they inevitably failed. And that whole operation on its own failed. But here's another thing that really happened. This is what took me to success, was something that we talked about the other day on Thursday, which is understanding your avatar. And then so I had to sit back and realize, hey, right now I'm not in the season of my journey to be hiring people. I'm not there yet. I don't know enough. I don't make enough. I'm just not there. So what do? I had to go and do some introspection, and then I actually talked to a phenomenal human being who's one of my greatest mentors of all time. His name's Pace Morby, and here's a phony Bobby. Pace is always with me in some way. Love Pace. And then Pace took 3 minutes talking to me. He said, Sam, your avatar is a closer. You may not have closed a ton of deals yet, but that is your avatar. You like talking. You're really good at getting people to like you. So heavily work on that skill set. And so what do? I go and I start training that skill set as much as I could. I'm going to get really good at getting sellers to want to sell their homes to me. And And all I do is I turn everything else off. We get rid of the cold callers, we get rid of the data, we get rid of all the expenses, because if I kept spending more, I would have kept losing more, right? And all I needed to do was leverage the one thing that I was really damn good at, and that's just being on the phones. So when that happens, I actually went and worked for 8 teams all at once, because I didn't have any money. I had a skill set, and at the time, but I had no money. So what do I need? I need leads. I need to craft my skill set, but I can't do that if I don't have sellers to talk to. So I went and talked to 8 different teams, and I approached them all very open and transparently about, like, hey, this is what I want to do. And they were all super cool with it, and they just filled my calendar with lead flow every single day, all day. And then in that time frame, what ended up happening was I was able to pay down what we call my ignorance debt. All the things that I didn't know how to do. I didn't know how to run a business. I didn't know how to hire people. I didn't know how to do all these things. Guess what? When you're plugged into 8 different teams, I was on a team that was doing a deal a quarter, and there's another team that was doing 20 or 30 deals a month. And so I got to see and everything in between, right? So I got to see what works, what CRMs work, what tools work, what type of operational structures, how you set your employees up to succeed, why people had high turnover and what that meant, all of these things. And I basically got to get a PhD in wholesale in my first 4 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And then doing that, in my 4th month of real estate, we made $121,000. My first ever 6-figure month was 4 months in.
Wow, 4 months in? And that was with all teams put together, or with one team? By the 4th month, you already had dedicated to one team?
Right. So actually, here's the thing. By my 4th month, up to my 4th month, I learned enough, and I built up enough of a nest egg to go and do my own thing.
Wow.
The 4th month was my first month on my own. And then it just beautifully compounded. And it was a little bit like,
awesome.
It was a little bit like the universe or God being like, hey, you grinded your ass off. Like, in like 3 months doesn't sound like a long time, but 10 hours a day, 6 hours a week, 10 hours a day, 6 days a week compounds.
Yeah.
It truly does compound. And I was like literally locked in my tiny room upstairs, one of my extra guest rooms. I just locked myself in there.
Yeah.
And I literally didn't even have the money for a dialer system yet. So all I was doing is I was just listening to Google Voice on my phone and just tearing away. And then after my 3rd month, I told all the teams, like, hey, I paid down my ignorance debt. I feel like I'm ready to take the chance on my own. And in the 4th month, the universe basically rewarded me with $121,250.
That's awesome.
And then the rest is just kind of history from there.
Congrats, man. So it's been repeating itself, that 100K a month since your 4th month.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're fortunate to consistently be doing 6-figure months, and now we're reaching some multiple 6-figure months.
Wow.
And it's a blessing. And the most important thing with that now is we're getting to a point where it's happening without me there.
Yeah.
Right. And this is the element of entrepreneurship, is because when I did that 6-figure month, the truth is I had to work 50 to 60 hours a week doing that. So I was on my own, but because I didn't have the team leverage behind me, I had to work more hours. I had to put more hours in. So it rewarded me with a 6-figure month, which is beautiful. And it's this tremendous blessing, but it's also not what I want to do. Yeah. Right. None of us get into entrepreneurship to then just go work relentlessly forever. Right. And we do want some level of our time back, some level of, reward to take in. And once I did it, I actually immediately, I remember I'd never made any amount of money like that in my life. And growing up in poverty, it's like that was a massive thing for me. And then we got the checks. I remember we had this one really big check out of all of that. And I looked at it, and it was very cool for all of 30 seconds. And then I realized, like, oh, well, cool. I got to put it down and got to go back to work. Yeah. And then in that moment, I realized, like, damn, this is tough. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, you just made 120 grand, but you're locked in a bedroom and you haven't seen the light of day in 3 weeks. Yeah. And it's like, cool, okay, so now we have to start understanding how to upgrade leverage. And then so very recently after that, I actually connected with someone that we just talked about. It was Robert Wensley. So that's actually the very first time that I met Robert Wensley, I believe was March of that year, and it was Clever Summit. And he and I hit it off. We just had a few discussions, and I spent a lot of time with him at Clever Summit in Las Vegas. And then maybe about a month or two after, I run into him again in Scottsdale, Arizona. And then that's where, like, I felt comfortable enough to, like, go and, basically bitch about my problems. Yeah. And I was like, hey, man, this is, like, where I'm at. Like, I'm making good money, but it's all dependent on me. And I need help. Yeah. And if this is what it means to make a crap ton of money, like, I don't know that this is necessarily worth it at this point. And he pulled me to the side and he said, like, dude, congrats, like you're finally understanding that being a solopreneur is not scalable. And so what Robert does, he then goes ahead and connects me with some of the baddest players in the industry who are just absolute phenoms. And he's like, hey, these people are going to be able to show you what it means to scale, what it means to build a team out, right? And automate your business. And so I actually owe a lot to him because the connections that he made for me in that time frame, one of whom has become a phenomenal mentor and friend to me. I owe him a lot because if he didn't open those doors for me, the trajectory would have potentially been really different.
Yeah, and those doors would have never opened if you never asked.
Absolutely.
You know, that's the power of asking questions.
That's so good. You know, it's so funny that meeting in Scottsdale, there was like a 2-3 day event. It was funny enough, that's actually where I met Eric Klein and Tony Montalbano. That's actually where I met those guys too. It was at that same house. And it was Robert throwing an investor lift party. But you're absolutely right. An element of being in the room, we always talk about getting in the room, right? And you have to give value to the room because if you don't, you don't earn a spot there. But if you've given enough value and you felt that you've truly served and the time is right, make the ask.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I did. I took a risk doing it, but I'm so damn glad I did because that ask actually changed my trajectory big time.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes is, if you never ask, the answer is always no.
Absolutely.
Always no. And on the 4th month after operating on your own, you say you were a solopreneur. You had VAs only, and it was just you closing, or
it was a very like jerry-rigged little team. So we had some VAs doing some calling and texting, and then we've got like this kind of revolving door of lead managers like coming in and then leaving, and it's because I didn't know how to set them up to succeed either. So a lot of times we see in the industry like people will hire acquisition reps, and it's a revolving door. They come in and 2 months later they're gone. Yeah, right. And the reason why, it's not because they suck. It's because we didn't hire properly and we didn't set them up to succeed properly. And at the end of the day, this all goes down to like what someone I tremendously look up to, Jocko Willink, talks about, which is just, this is all about extreme ownership. And it's like, if you have a revolving door of people coming in and leaving, that's not their fault, it's your fault.
Yeah, we got to look in the mirror.
It's a leadership issue. Yeah. And so it was a very kind of it was a very jerry-rigged kind of DIY setup that was not really good at all. And that's what I realized. It's going to take me 6, 7, 8 months to go and perfect the system on my own. Do I do that and, waste away 6, 7 months of my time? Or do I try to get in with the best in the industry and then just say, hey, what do I have to do to get your blueprint? Yeah. How can I just copy and paste it? Okay. And this is, it's funny enough, I was talking to a guy who, he's become a massive friend and a mentor to me, a pseudo mentor. And he's not in any paid capacity. He just like gives me some life advice and business advice. Yeah. He's just done it longer than I have. And he's at a point now where he's acquiring businesses in industries that he has no background in. And one thing that he's gotten really, really, really good at is, there's this old book called Who Not How. And the first thing he does is he doesn't decide or he doesn't determine, hey, what does it look like for me to run this business? Who do I have to find? Who has all the answers already? And what is it going to take me? What is it going to take for me to get them in here? And that's all it is. And that was like also a very different thought process, because when you grow up in poverty, you kind of penny pinch, right? You have to preserve the money that you have because you only have so limited of it. And then what I'm constantly kind of learning as an entrepreneur as I grow is the answer to your problem is not a blueprint. The answer to your problem is very often another human being. And you just have to find a way to get them in.
Yeah, I strongly agree with that. And I'm curious, you went through all of this. Right. Why? What was your core reason why?
Yeah, so it's so funny. One, I mean, there's like, if there's a big why, I actually have two massive whys. Everyone always talks about their family, and my family means the world to me. Actually, I'm actually like, can't wait till I get home and just like love on my family a little bit. But I actually have two core whys, and those, and it's really funny. And they're not in any specific order, and one is not more important than the other. They're equally important to me. I have to become a billionaire. And it's not about making $1 billion. It has nothing to do with the money. Like, I would never be able to spend that amount of money anyways. Hell, if I become a billionaire, I'm going to have a mansion, sure, but I'm going to spend all my time gaming in the mansion. Like, that is it. I'm just going to hang out with my friends, and we're not going to do anything extravagant. We're going to play Halo. And so, but the reason why the billion matters is it's access to resources and connections that are truly powerful. And now what matters is what do you do with those things. So my two main driving forces in life, the vision that I see for myself, is there's two fights that I really want to fight. Number one is I want to create the greatest animal sanctuary that has ever existed.
Oh, that's dope. I'm vegan, by the way. That's cool.
Yeah, so that's a huge thing for me. I have 3 pups, and Ace, the oldest one, he means the absolute world to me. And life would have been really different if I didn't have like animals in my life. And they give me a sense of peace and calm that I just can't get anywhere else. Yeah. And so for me, that's a big thing. And I think animal sanctuaries, like growing up, one of my biggest heroes was Steve Irwin. Like I absolutely admired him truly at my core. I was like a little kid. I was like a 4 or 5 year old kid. And he was the greatest thing in my opinion. And just carrying on the legacy and the mission that he had. And when I look at him, is he basically inspired a generation of people to take care of the world after him. And then we're adults now. And it's going to be cool to see which one of us actually makes it happen. And the reality is you don't make it happen by becoming a marine biologist who works for a university, because there's so much power to that. But without access to resources and connections and powerful things like that, you cannot implement global change. So Steve Irwin had, arguably one of the greatest zoos of all time in the Australia Zoo. And I basically want to take that 10x it, and I always joke about it. People don't take me seriously, but I'm dead serious about it. I want to buy out, like, once I'm a billionaire, I want to buy out a whole state. Like, I'll buy out the state of Wyoming. We'll evict all 12 people that live there. Not many. And then what we'll do is we'll turn the entire state of Wyoming into the greatest animal sanctuary ever.
That's awesome. I have a friend who has a sanctuary here in Houston.
Really?
Yeah, it's called Houston Mini Pig Sanctuary. So she has over 100 pigs that all rescued from slaughterhouses and everything. And she knows the name of each pig. Beautiful. And then she has a cow. She has other animals involved, but she has more pigs than anything.
Oh, I love that.
And it's a nonprofit organization. She's there. That's her job. Like, she's there like 80 hours a week or 60 hours a week. She has a family. She's a mom, but her children are at an age where she's able to do that overtime. Right. And she prefers being there than being with humans, because like she feels like her purpose is to take care of them. Right. And that's honorable, because I've been there before. I even slept the night over at the sanctuary, and it was uncomfortable, but for her it was normal. Yeah. She doesn't sleep there every night, but it was a great experience, and I could see your vision happening, and I trust it will happen.
Thank you.
Both visions, right?
Yeah, and I'll get to the next one, but with this one specifically, one thing that I really want to do is, there's a reason why sanctuaries don't work more often than not, and it's always a funding issue. And this is why, let's put the money first, let's put the resource allocation first, and then we can set things up to succeed. Yeah. And the one thing that I want to do is very similarly, like, I don't necessarily think that I want to open it to the public and make it a spectacle. What I do want to do is, I have this kind of weird vision of only allowing in youth and universities. And so basically what we're doing is we're inspiring the youth. Once they get to the university level, we're working with zoology programs. We're basically cultivating the next wave of animal greats out there. So that's the first big vision. And the second one actually goes back to the industry I used to work in before this. And that is that I really emphatically want to fight the fight of combating human trafficking. That's a massive thing. So a lot of people don't know that slavery and the sex trade and the trafficking of women and children is larger than it's ever been in history. Much larger by far. Yeah. It's not even close. And it's just something that we don't talk about, because media is very discerning with what it wants to put on. Yeah. But the tragedies are probably more horrible than they've ever been. Yeah. And it takes a massive amount of resources. And the truth is, where we look at, where extremist groups and trafficking organizations, where they target, fun fact, they actually target areas of natural disaster. So when Ukraine is at war, right, and there's so much destruction, they will actually send people worldwide into Ukraine. They'll fly people in to kidnap as many children as possible, because they know parents aren't around, order's not around.
There's a lot of distractions.
A lot of chaos. Same thing happened in Haiti. Same thing happened in Puerto Rico due to Hurricane Maria. And so it is insane how active these organizations are. And how intentional they are. And the sad truth is they're targeting areas that are so destroyed that their local governments do not have the capacity or the resources or the support to be able to handle all the crap that's happening and combat right, the trafficking of their women and children. And so what ends up happening is they rely on funds and support from, you know, American agencies and, you know, very much Western agencies who do have the funding to come in and save the day. But they need funding too.
Yeah, like in the movie and documentary Sound of Freedom, there was a scene where he went to, was it Colombia or Salvador, Honduras? It was a country down in the Americas. Yeah, and his job was funding his mission, but then in the middle of it, they pulled out of it, and he needed funds. Then a billionaire or a multimillionaire, he reached out to him and asked him, like, hey, can you donate some funds for this project where we're going to help save humans from human trafficking? And I could see you being that person, being involved, like willing, like, hey, just here's a whole check-ins account for it. Like, just use it wisely. I'll have an accountant to monitor everything that you're doing, because if it wasn't for that billionaire or multimillionaire that funded everything, those children would, or that movie would have never been made, or documentary would have never been made.
And then that was completely based on his real-life operation. So Tim Ballard, the movie, is actually someone that I've met. I've spent a bit of time with him. Again, I have to give all the credit in the world to Pace Morby, my mentor, who actually put me in the room with Tim Ballard. And Pace Morby knew that it was a big deal for me to fight human trafficking. And then and Tim Ballard at the time was the most Googled man on earth, literally the most popular man on the internet. And at that time, Pace was like, as soon as he realized it, Pace and Tim are actually collaborating on some amazing things. I probably shouldn't talk about it, but as soon as he realized that, he was like, don't even worry about it. I want you to have a one-on-one with Tim. So I got to meet him and talk about, you know, the vision of that type of future. I definitely want to be a little more hands-on than the billionaire who just writes the checks. Definitely want to go play real-life Call of Duty and go on some ops. But that's the second big mission.
That's awesome. I trust it's gonna work out, and it's gonna happen. Is there a time frame you looking to manifest all of that, or you're just all on divine timing? No,
it's not on divine timing at all. And my viewpoint is a very graphic viewpoint, and it's a very brutal one, but it's very true, and it holds me accountable. And one of my mentors in life, just a general life mentor, has helped me become a better man. He knows these two things about me, and about the human trafficking. He actually once confronted me because he thought that I was being lazy, and I was truthfully walking too slow. And he said, Sam, how many women and children have to be trafficked, and how many women and children have to be tortured? How many women and children have to endure suffering, hoping for a hero to save the day before you get your shit together and save the damn day? And then when you think about it that way, he said, like, literally, and he drilled this to me, Sam, right now, a woman is enduring unthinkable horror. And she can be saved by you, but you're too busy being lazy. And so for me, it's not that there's a definitive timeline. It is whatever the hell the timeline is, I have to make it faster.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot of pressure.
It is.
I mean, it's good pressure, because pressure makes diamonds, right?
Yeah.
So that's incredible. And if you need help with that, I'll help as much as I can on my part. We got another foot soldier over here, because I have 2 sons, so I know how it feels that child trafficking, human trafficking should be stopped as soon as possible. You know, and to move forward with the next question is, that is your why? And that's my phone. Let me put on silent mode. Yeah, and those two reasons are your core why reasons. How soon did you figure out that was your why? Or did you ever take time to yourself to meditate and reflect, okay, why am I really doing this? Why am I making so much money?
Right.
Why am I committed? Why am I sacrificing time with family and friends and everything else?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the really big things for me was understanding that in this game you have to be playing for somebody, right? And very often we look around at people and they're playing for the Rolexes, they're playing for the Lambos, they're playing for all these things. And it's like, even to this day, like, we make a lot of money. Like, this is all like crappy clothes from H&M. Yeah. Like, this is like on their clearance stuff too. You have to play for a reason. You have to play for a team. You have to play for somebody. And at some point, I realized, I don't know when it was. This was within the last like year and a half or 2 years. I realized that playing for myself only gets me so far, and it's very unfulfilling. And if you want to truthfully grow at the highest level, you have to be bold and you have to take on more responsibility than just yourself. Right. And there is a power to having a weight of responsibility on yourself. I think that you move mountains when you do that. And so for me, I looked around and I saw a lot of people, and they just did it for themselves, and that's okay. A lot of whatever their why is totally fine. But for me, I realized that, and I'm very big on honor. To me, the most important 5-letter word on earth is honor. And my mother sacrificed a tremendous amount to raise us in complete poverty, and she didn't sacrifice her young adulthood away and basically her entire life away for us, for me to go and just have a wife and a kid, a golden retriever, and a white picket fence. That's the quintessential American dream, right? And that sacrifice would be dishonored by living a life that mediocre. And let's take it one step further. If I was a multimillionaire and I drove around in a Lambo and I had the most abundant lifestyle, that would still be a dishonor to all of her sacrificing. And then the reality is, her sacrifice can only be honored in one way, and that is to stop the suffering of as many people as possible. And once I realized that, the why became more about me, it became more about everybody else, and it became more about service rather than intake. And then I think once that mental kind of distinction was made in my mind, you stop relying on motivation, and everything just starts coming. You don't have time to waste. A lot of people, they have this problem where they suffer from procrastination, a lack of motivation, all these things. Once you find a purpose, you don't have time to waste. Yeah. It's not a thing.
Yeah, once you have that purpose, everything comes with it. Like, you don't even think about discipline, you don't think about motivation, you don't think about anything else. You just commit and take massive action.
That's it.
Yeah. And to finish up this episode, I want to, give you thank you and your flowers for everything that you've done and for what you're gonna do, because you're gonna do a positive impact to this. That's awesome. Shout out to your dogs.
Absolutely.
Because I'm sure they brought a lot of mental health in a positive way to you, because you said if it wasn't for them, you wouldn't be where you are today, right?
Absolutely.
So that's awesome, man. I want to gracefully say thank you again for your time, because I know your time is extremely valuable, and I trust everything's going to unfold perfectly for you with hard work and with discipline, right? And so thank you so much, Sam. I appreciate you coming in on the podcast. Have a great day.
Great to be here.
And thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. Follow Sam on Instagram. How people follow you on Instagram?
Oh, just look me up at Arch, ARCH, and then Sam Singh. Just type in Sam Singh. You'll always find me.
Okay. And then on his YouTube, just YouTube Sam Singh, and you'll be able to find him there. There'll be a little check mark next to it. And remember to hit the notification bell as well. Thank you for tuning in. Y'all have a great day. Peace.